The Big E Sports Show.
Yeah, we got it going on,
The fastest hour in sports entertainment. We don't just talk about the headlines. We bring you some of the most engaging and colorful guests each and every episode for your listening pleasure. Now, without further ado, here's your host, Elissa Walker-Campbell.
Hey, Elissa Walker-Campbell. Welcome back to the Big E Sports Show, where we dive into the heart of the game with the voices that know it best. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by former PGA Tour professional. He is an accomplished author and renowned golf analyst, and that is Larry Miller. Larry brings decades of experience and insight into the game that we all love, and that's why he's with us each and every week. Hello, Larry. Good to have you back.
Yeah, it's great to be back. And boy, golf never has a lack of things to talk about, especially right now with the season in full swing and the Masters in the rearview mirror.
And at the top of the headlines, of course, is Scotty Scheffler, because he lit it up in round one at the Byron Nelson with a bogey-free 10 under 61. So, Larry, when you had a chance to kind of think about that round, what stood out the most about his performance?
Well, he put on a clinic with the irons, with his iron play. He only made 71 feet of putts, which is just about an average day on the PGA Tour. Nothing special, just average, 71 feet. In contrast, Jonathan Vegas made over 200 feet of putts, but Scotty shot 61. He did it with his irons. He had birdie putts. I think he had 5 birdie putts inside 4 feet. Which is really pretty amazing. And then a couple of others like 7, 8 feet. The longest putt he made all day was 16 feet, 10 inches. And he shoots 10 under par. Well, that just tells you how good he hit his irons. And he even hit a 3-wood on the last hole or not on the last hole, but he hit a 3-wood on the third par 5 to within 4 feet of the hole from 250 yards away.
Wow. So
it was absolutely a clinic in ball striking and probably the finest tee to green round we've seen in a few years.
Well, Scotty's front nine, it was a 29 loaded with birdies and an eagle. And I just have to wonder, all your years in golf, Larry, how rare is a start like that, even for a world number one player?
It doesn't happen that often. You'll see 32s and 3s, maybe a 31. And every now and then you'll see a guy light it up for 9 holes and shoot 29, 30. But he kept it going. He shot the 29 and then came back with 32. So it's not like it was just catching lightning in a bottle. It was consistent, it was steady, and it was unrelenting. And the guy is just, he's coming into form now after a slow start because of his hand injury and not being able to play and having a little rust. But it seems like now he's shaking off the rust and he's back to the old Scotty that we saw last year.
Well, Scotty hasn't secured a win yet in 2025, but he's had a number of strong finishes. How would you describe, you just said consistency, just his consistency and mindset overall this season?
Yeah, I think he's hungry for that first win. I think it bothers him that he hasn't won yet, even though he's got valid reasons, for having the rust with the hand injury. But it looks like he wants to win this thing wire to wire, and he's got a head start. And if he keeps playing like he played yesterday, which he probably will, I'm not going to say he's going to shoot 61 and 10 under, but he's going to keep striking the ball, very, very accurately and consistently. And so it's going to be really hard for somebody to catch him this week if he continues this tee to green play.
Well, Scotty Scheffler has been knocking on the door all season, and as we reflect on his game, what adjustments, if any, does he need to make to finally break through and get that first win in 2025? What's he got to do?
Well, after the injury, when he came back, he had a little bit of a left miss going where, he didn't have that last year. But he missed a lot of shots to the left when he came back. And it's probably a direct result of that injury, because your hands have to operate in a certain way to hit the ball, accurately. And if he's in the least bit favoring, that left hand a little bit or the right hand, because of the discomfort because of the injury. And that's why, that club could have been over-rotating just a little bit in his hands. But it seems like he's stabilized that now. Although he did miss a shot or two to the, if you want to call it a miss, he was in the close to the green and in a fringe and got it up and down every time. He had no bogeys. So the 3 greens that he missed, he hit 15 of them, but the 3 he missed, he got up and down every time because they weren't really horrible misses. They were just a little – he missed 1 to the right and 2 to the left. But I think that he's been able to stabilize that left miss and hitting most of his shots the way he wants to. And so I think that's the adjustment he's made, is that he's got that club face more stable going through the hitting area.
Larry, what is the pressure like for a world number one who hasn't yet posted a win this season? We were just talking about that. I mean, does it weigh on someone like a Scottie Scheffler? I mean, how much does he think about that? I mean, he doesn't seem like a guy that's, biting his fingernails up to his elbows. I mean, he seems, pretty cool and calm, but is he perhaps feeling a little bit of pressure because he wants to get across the finish line and get that win?
Well, I think it weighs less on him than anybody else. I mean, he's got the absolutely perfect demeanor, for golf. If you remember Dustin Johnson in his really best years, he had that same sort of flatline, persona where he just went along and pressure didn't seem to bother him in the least. And Scottie seems the same way. Now, we all know that everybody's human, and you're going to feel pressure, but the way that you deal with it and the way that it affects you outwardly and inwardly is different in different people. Different people have a different emotional makeup. And so a person who's more high-strung, and the pressure's going to bother them a lot more. But a guy who's laid back like Scottie and DJ was, Jack Nicklaus was like that. A lot of these great players had that same persona where, they were just calm in the face of a storm. And I think that he's able to handle it better than anybody else. But I just think he's hungry for that first win. I don't think it's so much pressure on him as it is he wants it. And, and he's bearing down now. He's more focused now that his hand is healed. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting this year to see he and Rory, how that little matchup goes on as the year goes on.
Yeah. The Byron Nelson is underway. And I have to wonder, too, with Scheffler returning to this event in his hometown here in Dallas, I mean, how much does that impact a player mentally and emotionally? I mean, you're a New Orleans guy. What was that like for you when you were on tour and you had the opportunity to sleep in your own bed?
Well, it's a two-edged sword. You get to sleep in your own bed. You're comfortable. You don't have to travel. You can eat at home if you want. I mean, it's a lot more comfortable. On the other hand, the other end of the sword is that you've got all your friends and family out there watching you and expecting you to play well. So even though you're more comfortable playing at home, at the same time, you probably feel a little extra heat to perform well for you're in front of the people that you know.
Well, we don't want to look ahead too far, but, we think about this week, the Byron Nelson. How does that prepare Scottie for the U.S. Open? We're going to talk a little bit about that. U.S. Open qualifiers going on all across the nation right now. But, it's all about getting ready for the next event. So let's talk about how the Byron Nelson helps Scottie prepare.
Well, it's going to help him from the aspect of being, in contention, and if he wins and playing well and hitting the ball well, it's going to boost his confidence. I think Scottie has tremendous amount of confidence already, but it's going to really be boosted by, I think, that 61 yesterday was only one round, okay? But it was a very important round because shooting that score, 8 birdies and an eagle, really had to just give him a tremendous amount of confidence knowing that he's back, that he's got it back now. He's overcome the rust from the layoff. And I think the confidence level has been raised. And so that's the thing that going forward is going to, I think, propel him, to have a really great year again. But the way Rory's playing and winning that Masters like he did and playing well again, it's going to really be a fun year to watch those two and see who ends up having the best year.
Yeah. That opening round, Scottie Scheffler, bogey-free, 10 under, 61. Let's shift gears just a little bit and have some fun here, Larry. I'm not sure we've ever talked about this all the years that you've been on my program, but what does it take to shoot a 59? Because it is one of the rarest and most iconic achievements in the sport and certainly demands extraordinary combination of skill and just mental focus, course management. So how close have you ever gotten to shooting a 59?
Well, I've had 2 63s and 162, and the 62 I actually had a good chance to shoot 59, and I ended up making a double on the 17th hole and shot 62. But I was right there and had a chance. And when that happens, when you see a player go that low, let's use the old cliche word, the zone. You get in the zone, and of course, what the zone is just hyper focus. And I mean, it's like Tiger said. A lot of times Tiger would walk from one hole to one green to the next tee and wouldn't even recognize his wife, or his mother, or his kids. He wouldn't even acknowledge anybody. Wouldn't even see him. Yeah, that's how focused you can become, and that focus is increased when you go that low, and it lasts the whole round. Sometimes you can get there for 2 or 3 holes, and then it goes away. Something distracts you, or you hit one bad shot and you're distracted. But when you go into the 58, 59, 60 range, 61 like yesterday, then your hyper focus is there for all 18 holes, and it's a special thing. It happens very, very rarely. I mean, you can count how many 59s there's been on the PGA Tour, and all the hundreds of thousands of rounds that have been played. And so that it's almost like a visit of a special grace that steals upon you, and you get into this space, where everything is almost on automatic pilot. And the putts go in the hole looks as big as a bucket, and it's just a special thing. And I wrote a book called Exploring the Zone. It's published in 2000. And it's all about that. It's about the zone. It's about how maybe to bring it on, how to get into it intentionally and not have it just be an accidental occurrence. It's an interesting thing. And there are steps that you can take to encourage that to happen.
Well, and there's always a moment in a 59 round where a player knows something really special is happening and taking place. And instead of backing off, you embrace it, you lean into it, and you just continue, as you're talking about, that hyper focus.
And you get 4 under, you want to get 5. You get 5, you want to get 6, and you're not happy to be 6 or 7 under. You want another one, And you're playing so well that you have confidence that you're going to hit it close or make a putt. And it's just a whole different. You get into attack mode, when you start getting on the brink of a score that low. All of a sudden, you're not protecting anymore. You're attacking, and that's the difference. A lot of times in tournament golf, if you get a really good round going, you become protective of it and don't want to mess it up. But on those special days when you go that low, you just want to keep going and you want to attack the ball.
Larry, in your opinion, I mean, which is harder, starting strong or closing strong when you're playing and you could be posting a 59 round?
Well, of course, it can't happen if you don't get off to a hot start. That's first of all. But I think it's more, you can get off to a hot start a lot of times. So that's not the hardest thing. The hardest thing is closing it out. And, if you're on a par 72 golf course and let's say you're 12 under going to the last hole and you need birdie to shoot 59, that's a lot of pressure. And that's tremendous pressure. You got to take your hats off to be able to, finish off on that last hole to shoot in the 50s. It's happened several times where the player birdied or eagled the last hole to do it, and that has to be the hardest thing.
Yeah, and notable members of the 59 Club: Jim Furyk, David Duval, and Brent Snedeker. But talk some more about just the mental toughness, staying in the present when a player realizes that they have a chance to break 60. What is that inner dialogue? And are you just constantly hitting the delete button anytime results or score or what you got to get on the next hole comes to your mind? I mean, what can you control mentally, and how do you approach it?
Well, first of all, when that happens, when you're going that low, first of all, there are no negative thoughts. Okay, that doesn't happen. Like in another normal round of golf, if you hit a bad shot or two, you might get over a shot that you need to hit, and you might have a little bit of a doubt. Let's call it doubt. And here's how it works. Doubt ends up causing tension, okay, because you don't have confidence and you get a little tense because of the doubt. Mm-hmm. But when you come to the last hole and have a chance to shoot 59, you don't have those negative thoughts because you've got it 12 under. You've done everything right. You're in the zone. And all you're thinking about is how I'm going to get the ball in the hole in 4 shots if it's a par 5 or 3 if it's a 4. And you're thinking about the shot at hand First thing, get it in the fairway if it's a par 4 or 5, and then you worry about the second shot and you pay attention to that. But you're not thinking anything negatively, and you're not even thinking so much of the outcome as you are, because when you're that hyper-focused, you're not thinking results. You're thinking present moment perfection, and that's what you're doing. And so it's a special thing of being totally immersed in the present. And so you're, as I've always said, you're immersed in the details of your pre-shot routine, the way you address the ball. You're focused on the target completely, and so it's just, it gets back to that hyper focus that happens. And I'm just telling you, it's interesting that there are ways that you can encourage that to happen. And that's why that book, Exploring the Zone, was so interesting, because it gives you 10 or 12 different ways that you might encourage those special mental states, that produce those great rounds.
Yeah. Hey, we are winding down our time with former PGA pro Larry Miller. We want a couple of quick hits on just U.S. Open qualifying. I'd mentioned it earlier. It is underway at sites across the country. I mean, what is it like for players grinding through local and sectional qualifiers? My son, Steven, he's got his coming up. And then, of course, Eli, we were just in San Antonio and posted, I thought, a solid score on a very tough course, Cedar Creek in San Antonio.
Yeah, they call it golf's longest day, the U.S. Open qualifying. It's just 36 holes, and it's a grind. And, of course, it always happens in the summertime, when summer's coming on, and it's hot. And you have to go 36 holes, and really a lot of pressure because there's so few spots. You might have 70 or 80 people for 2 or 3 spots. And that's a pressure cooker, because you know that if you make a double, you're just about gone. And so every shot you get over, you're thinking, I got to hit a good shot here, or else, I'm messing this up. And so to me, that in Q school, qualifying school and U.S. Open qualifying, to me, are the two most pressure cookers that you can face in competitive golf.
Well, what separates those from making it out of qualifying and those that fall short? We're talking purely ball striking, but also it's like you said, I mean, you got to eliminate doubles. You can't have a double.
No, you can't have a double, and you got to stay focused the whole time. You can't get distracted by anything, and you also have to be patient.
Yes,
bogeys don't really kill you in tournament golf. It's doubles and worse that really take you out of the contention, because a bogey can be overcome immediately with a birdie, or even later in the round. In fact, this last year, Scotty Scheffler's bounce back percentage was over 50%, which means that every time he made a bogey, he had 50% chance of birdie in the next hole, which is a pretty amazing stat. But when you start making doubles in those qualifiers, boy, that's it. Your history, pretty much, unless you can make 8 birdies. So that's the deal with those things. And you have to be patient, and you have to play smart. You don't want to take unnecessary chances, because that's when you start making the doubles.
My final question for you is, I mentioned you're our New Orleans guy. Just your takeaways from the Zurich Classic, Andrew Novak and what Ben Griffin grabbed their first PGA Tour win. What impressed you the most about their teamwork? It's a little bit different format.
Yeah, and, every year in that thing, except last year, Rory and Sean Lowry won the thing.
Yeah, Shane Lowry.
Shane Lowry.
Yes, sir.
But often in this team event, you end up seeing guys that you've never heard of, or guys that haven't broken through yet, go on and win and do well. And the reason is very simple. It's obvious, because you have a partner. It's almost like a mulligan. If you hit a bad shot, well, you got a partner. Might hit a good one. And so there's a lot less pressure on you when you have a teammate. You have a guy by your side that can overcome your bad shot, and he feels the same way. And so you're playing loose. And those guys that you've never heard of, they're playing very loose, and so they can play well. And it's not like an individual event, where they feel more pressure. So that's why you see all the time. You see guys that you don't know, and guys that haven't broken through. But anyway, it's a fun thing, and they love to come to New Orleans. They love to go to the restaurants and all the stuff. Jazz Fest was going on, And so it's a fun time. They usually bring their families because it's almost like a vacation.
Yeah. From the driving range to the greens, Larry Miller delivers the latest on the PGA Tour. Always a true pleasure when we have the opportunity to catch up with you. And we look forward to our next conversation. Enjoy the continued coverage of the Byron Nelson. We'll talk real soon. Thank you, Larry.
Okay. Happy golfing. See you.
You bet.
Bye-bye.